Hi guys, Arthur here from Homeowner DIY. In today's video, I am going to install a wall-mounted sink. Now, I already have one wall-mounted sink on the channel. The first one was what I would call the non-intrusive way, so I didn't need to cut a hole in the drywall to install backing. On this one, I am going to cut a hole in the wall to install backing, so this will be a much cleaner look. Now, depending on your skill level and your confidence level, you may want to go with this route if you want the better look. But other than that, I mean, they'll both do the same thing. One is just a lot less work to do. So what we'll do now is we'll look at our bathroom and our setup. Alright, so this is the existing cabinet and vanity that need to be removed because this has to be handicap accessible. This is not going to work because you wouldn't be able to get your feet into here. So I'm going to pull this out. I'll open the wall. We'll open the wall here. We'll put backing in, we'll put the frame, and then the new sink will be a wall mounted style. And then we'll put in offset drain to meet code, and we should be good to go. So with that in mind, we'll do material and tools. Alright, so this is our materials list. So I've got a 2x2 number 8 by 3-inch screws, 1.25" number 8 drywall screws, and then this is 3/4 plywood. I actually found this thing outside and it'll be more than enough for what we need. Guys, this is what we need for material, at least for the backing portion. Alright, so this is our material and tools for the plumbing now that everything is here. So we have our wall mounted sink, that is our bracket. We have an 1.25" offset drain, faucet, white DAP, ABS glue, putty, ABS fittings, so Y-trap, clean out 45 1.5" by 1.25" slip adapter, number 14 by 2-inch screws, 1.5" ABS pipe, and then we have a drill bit for the screws because number 14s are rather big. Alright, this is our tools list. So drywall saw, circular saw, a respirator because this place is 40 years old. Asbestos is a question mark. I have my cordless kit. So impact, cordless drill. For safety equipment, earplugs, safety glasses, silicone gun, 2-foot level, and then hand tools. So measuring tape, pencil, and anything else I might need. Guys, this is what I believe I need for tools for this job, so let's get started. Okay, so we have our instructions here. This is a Declan, which is the second one down. Now the instructions, the plates that they have in the picture here and this plate are not the same because based on what they have over there, the holes would be higher up. But I've already done, I mocked this up. So these holes here are in line with the rim. So these holes is what I'm going to go off of for the height. So if we do 34 or 33.5, which is here, the plate will be in line. So this is where the backing will be centered. So our center is right here. They give instructions and the instructions are technically not correct. Anyways, this will be the left side and then the right side is probably will be here. So our center, this is our center mark right here. So this here and this here, this is the actual center of where the bracket is going to be. So this center mark here, we'll put it right there. And then that will where I need to cut here for the backing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and grab my 2-foot level and draw a box on the wall. So the bracket is 4.5 inches high. So I'll cut this, we'll figure out where the studs are. Then I'll cut the top, and then wherever the studs are, I'll measure off 1.5 inches because that's how thick the wood is. We'll go at 3/4 and then we'll draw a line. And then we will cut the whole thing out. Okay, so I'm going to put my respirator on and then we'll cut out the box. I think there's backing here because of this here. Right, so we have a piece of backing here. I believe there's another piece of backing over here, so I don't even have to do anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take measurements for everything, and then I'll put the wall back together. So you see backing here, so let's just say this wasn't here. What I would do is I would put my 2x2 on the inside here. Because I have 3/4 plywood, I would inset the 2x2 3/4 back. I would screw that into the stud. This one has a strip of 1/2 inch plywood on it, but I would inset it back, and then when I put the 3/4 plywood in, what I would do is have it flush with this, and then the drywall would fit right over it. But with this, everything's already been done here for me. I don't have to do anything, so I'm just going to put this back in. I'm going to measure off, take a couple pictures, and then off we go. Okay, so I'm going to put backing here, and then there's a piece of backing here, and then I'll probably fill this up here. But I'll use this here, this space, as an example on how I would do backing. So just like this is flush with this, we want the same thing. So the plywood is 3/4. So that's 3/4 there. When we mount our piece of wood, we want it like this. Screw it into the side, to the stud, screw it into the side. Do the same thing on this side, and then I will scab the piece here, and the screws will transfer the load to the studs. Give it a shake, it seems to be okay. Alright, so we have our piece of plywood. Just slide it inside. There you go, you now have a solid piece of backing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put another piece across here, and then I'm going to box, put the drywall back on, tape it, mud it, and then get it up to the level that it needs to be to, in this case, mount this grab bar and then the toilet paper holder. But guys, if you're going to do something wall mounted, you're going to need to screw into the stud. So a piece of blocking like this is fine as well. And then screw into the studs. Be sure to give it at least 2 screws per side, and that's going to distribute the weight more evenly. But like I said, with this being a grab bar, we want to have a lot of structure because people are going to pull up on it all the time. A wall mounted sink, who's to say people don't push down on it either, right? So it's better to overbuild. Okay, so I grabbed the bracket. The holes here are about 1 inch lower than the actual rim. So I'm going to mount the rim of the sink at 34. So what we'll do is mark this out as 33. Now the sink is 19 inches wide. So at 19 inches, 8.5 will be our center right there. So we'll make our mark, go across. Alright, so that is where I'm going to drill the pilot holes. I'll do 5 to maximize the amount of strength that the bracket will have to the wall. Alright, so I'm just going to put this up on the wall, eye out the line on the center of the holes. I said 8.5 is half of 19. No, that's wrong. It's 9.5. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it there, and then we'll drill our pilot holes. Now, guys, we have a 1/2 inch of drywall and then a 2x6 or something like that. So that's 1.5 inches as well. Once you factor in the plate, the screws won't go through. And keep this in mind because you don't want to hit something inside the wall. Okay, so these number 14 screws, these have a number 3 Robertson bits. As far as I know, there are 4 sizes of bits for Robertson. Okay, it seems nice and solid. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is put our drain on here. So the way this is designed is we have the rubber at the bottom, we have the nut. So I'm going to put putty here and then pop it inside the drain. Guys, once again, the reason I prefer putty over silicone is because putty is easy to remove and you will get, I've heard 50 years out of putty. So I like things to be easily serviceable. If you use silicone, it's going to be tougher to take it apart, and you can also break something. So we have our putty. And then also I like to push it on just to make it easier. So we'll drop that inside. Alright, so we'll put the rubber. Guys, one thing as well, this thing is beveled, so the bevel goes to the top. Okay, so don't go too crazy with the power on tightening this. Look at this, the black seal to compress. Feel for some resistance, but you don't want to tighten it as hard as you can. And now we have putty squeezing out. We'll leave that for now. So this is our 90, and then this is our offset piece. So as you can see, because this thing turns so high, this has to be mocked up first. This has to be prefab. Okay, because these two, when they thread on, the pipe end moves a lot, which means it's not going to seal properly. So I brought some clear silicone. All I'm going to do is silicone the threads. So that is tight, so we're gonna back it off a tiny bit. Look at it from the end, make sure it looks relatively straight, which that looks okay. And then we'll clean up the end. So I'm gonna throw this off to the side for a little while to give it some time to dry. Alright, so I'm going to install the faucet. So we have 3 holes here. The faucet is just a single handle, so there will be a base plate that goes on this. But here you can see the setup that they have. So they have the nuts down here, they have a washer, the rubber goes between the washer and the sink, and then this one has a plate. So between the plate and then the black washer will be the base plate to cover these 2 holes, otherwise you're going to have a leak. So the O-ring here will fit into a groove in the bottom of the plastic washer. The plastic washer will fit to the bottom of the base plate. It'll only fit one way and I'll have a nice tight fit. When you tighten down the nuts for the faucet to the sink, that is going to compress the O-ring and give you a nice watertight seal. So the ring here also has a gasket. Send the 2 lines through the hole. You may have to go one at a time because the nuts may not fit through the hole together. Put it through the hole and then start by tightening up the nuts underneath. Underneath, put the rubber gasket on first, put the metal washer, and then put on the nuts. Now the nuts are not threaded all the way through, but in most cases it doesn't matter which way you put it on, and then tighten them down. For the nuts, tighten them back and forth together, and then the faucet will go down nice and square. For the faucet, hit it with your palm a couple times to make sure it's nice and tight. Straighten it if you need to, and then also check the base plate to make sure it looks symmetrical on the deck of the sink. Alright, so for the sink, it's going to sit right here. So all I'm going to do is eye out the center screw with the center of the sink. Alright, I wasn't sure about this, but if I turn this, it's going to hit this stop. So I'll have to pull the sink off to put this piece on here. So what I think we're going to do is I'm just going to go straight tight to the back, and that should be fine. Okay, so that is the drained all the way towards the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen off the fern coat, and then I'll slide this out. So on the inside of the fern coat, it's 1.5 inches. So I'm going to glue a 2 3/4 piece in, and then 1.5 inches will go to the very back here, and then we can tighten up our gear clamp. Alright, so we have our Y. I'll slide it all the way in. Let's set our grade. Now we'll tighten up the gear clamp. For the gear clamp, tighten it down, but you shouldn't feel any resistance. If you snap the gear clamp, you're going to have to replace it. Alright, so I've glued the slip adapter onto a vertical piece of pipe. I think this is the easiest way to figure out how long of a trap arm that you need to be. So if we take the trap and then we dry fit it onto our FOP, we can now get an idea of where we need to be. So with this in mind, I might have to put one more fitting onto this to make this work. I think so, yeah. So the Y here comes out fairly crooked. So I'll have to go see what I have in my goodie bag. Alright, with having the trap spinnable like it is now, I think the simplest thing to do would be to 245 it. Which means we'd be maxed out on our degrees of change. So we have 1, 2, 3, 45s. But that's still within code, and I don't like having all the fittings tight together, but it will work in this case. When piping your fittings, glue them as you go. Set the grade with a level on the face of the fitting. Also, don't dry fit multiple pieces together because the pipe won't slide in all the way, and that's going to change things after you glue it in. And leave a slight gap right here so your glue doesn't come squirting out and making a nicer look. So the last thing I will do is I'll connect the water lines. So this one with the tag, this is the hot, the other one's the cold. And now I'll go ahead and tighten the two nuts. When tightening the water lines, use a crescent wrench to back wrench the stop to hold it in place, and with a 5/8, tighten the water lines as tight as you can get them so they don't leak. Alright, so we'll remove the excess putty that's at the very bottom. This drain doesn't have a symbol on it, so it doesn't really matter which way you do it. So I'm going to go ahead and test it. After I test it and everything's okay, I'll finish up with putting a bead of DAP along here. Alright, so I filled it up to the overflow, so we'll pull the foil. And now we are going to check for leaks. So we're checking here, here, all the ABS, this, back there. Anything to do with water, we'll just check over. Now I've already tested this about 3 times under a full load. Everything is fine, but guys, make sure that you always test under a full load. Don't just have water going down the drain because you're not going to get a proper test. Everything looks good. So the last thing I'll do really quickly is just dap this all the way around. So for dapping here, cut the nozzle to the correct size. I'm reusing this so it's bigger than I want it to be. But with a bead, use the finishing tool and go back and forth in either direction and wipe off as you need to. Depending on how much you're wiping off, you may have to do it more often. Sometimes you'll have to do it less often. Alright, so this is our sink 100% complete. So I dap the back. We have our clean out. Our trap arm goes into our trap, our hot and our cold. I've tested it. Everything is good. Nothing is leaking. This job is now complete. Alright guys, so that concludes this job. So I put in offset sink drain. This one you can't put a stopper. It's not designed to have a stopper. I think this is for more of a commercial setup. This specifically, this type of drain is for handicap use because it'll push the drainage for the sink towards the back. Otherwise, everything went well. I didn't run into any issues, any unforeseen circumstance, so I'm very happy with this, with the way it went, as well as the customer. The time on this job. The time for the backing and then the install minus the drywall work, because I'm not going to include that. The time was about 4 hours. One thing too, for the silicone on the drain, I actually came back the next day because it was so late. Guys, I would suggest if you're going to put silicone on the drain, then give it a day to dry. Because if you wait an hour and then you start to turn it back and forth, you may develop a leak because the silicone isn't fully cured. The cost of this job. The sink, the faucets, the drain, and ABS and whatever other material I needed. The cost was about $400. This is relatively simple. I mean, there was nothing over the top here. The faucet is very basic as well as the sink itself, but nowadays everything is so expensive that a simple little job like this is not exactly cheap anymore. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope something here is going to help you on your project when you need to go ahead and do that. Guys, till next time, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next project.